on WGHQ Kingston, on your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Grammer. Wounded Warrior Project supports injured veterans by connecting them with fellow warriors, by serving them through mental health and wellness programs, and by empowering them to live on their own terms. No one should face a battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Jared Mans from the Spring Lake Fire Department, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
Okay, it's Friday. Thank God.
TGIF, but see, I'm retired, Lawrence, so
every day's Friday for you?
I don't care. It's Friday, Thursday,
good.
Wednesday. What's going on?
I'm far away from being retired, so. But thank God it's Friday. I'm looking for, even though I got to work both days this weekend, working here, doing some painting and putting some furniture together. It's still, I'll be able to sleep in a little tomorrow and Sunday. And the Giants don't play till Monday night, so. It actually worked out. I got to blow leaves at my mom's with all the wind and the rain is knocking all the leaves down. Usually the oak trees, I usually wait until the first week of December to do all the leaf blowing. But this year with the colder temperatures, at night and the wind and the rain, it's knocking all the leaves down, so it's good. I'll probably have our whole yard done before I go to Florida. So.
I was coming back from a meeting last night, and boy, it was windy, and the leaves were all over the throughways.
Yeah, they were, and it was really windy last night, and raining quite a bit. At least it was in uptown. I don't know what it was like through the rest of New York, but yeah, it's been a little windy and rainy. But I tell you, you can't beat the temperature yesterday, though. It got up to 66, man. Did you get? I mean, I don't know. Did you have to go play golf yesterday, or was it?
I didn't play golf, but yeah, guys were playing golf.
I mean, yesterday was. I had the windows open in the house. I mean, it was beautiful out yesterday. I don't know if we're gonna get too many more of them. Tomorrow night, it's supposed to be. My phone's on my desk, so I don't have it. I think it's supposed to be in the low 20s tomorrow night.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure my friend George Post was out at Green Acres yesterday. I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, when it starts getting into the low 20s, then you know that winter's getting, you could say fall is pretty much over. It's still, but yesterday was like a nice, a nice breeze. The sun was out. I mean, I was tempted to throw shorts on. That was a little much. But, when I came to work Wednesday morning, it was 28 degrees out when I came to work Wednesday morning. I mean, me, Fred, and Greg were on the air on Wednesday morning, and Fred came in with shorts on. I'm like, dude, are you crazy? He's like, I was scraping ice off the window of my car. I was like, with shorts on. So, one morning it's 28, and then yesterday was really nice. Maybe we'll get one or two more of those days before the winter comes, but I don't know.
There's a nice, I didn't read it yet, but there's an interesting column in the Post today.
Miranda Devine?
No, I was talking about Ian O'Connor writing about how there was a scout for the Giants that encouraged the Giants way back when to draft Tom Brady in the fourth round. Of course, they didn't, and so we know what the rest of the story is.
Yeah, but if he's not coached properly,
that's true.
Then he's not Tom Brady, and it doesn't matter who you don't go into the right situation. Saquon Barkley was a great running back in college. If you're not coached properly, the Giants are terrible. They're great at taking good players. They're terrible at coaching them. And that's the problem. They've had probably 2 good coaches, maybe 3 in their 97 years of existence. The Mariners are terrible owners. You know, they're just not good. They're not a good football organization. They don't hire good general managers. They don't really care about their football team. And, you know, if Pete Rozelle didn't bring George Young to the Giants in the late 70s, we don't get Parcells, we don't get LT, we don't win those 2 Super Bowls.
Right.
If Ernie Accorsi doesn't come to the Giants in the early 2000s, we don't get Eli, we don't get Chris Snee, we don't get Tom Coughlin, we don't win any of those Super Bowls. So it wasn't the Mariners that did anything special. They've been sitting back in their keisters doing nothing. I mean, you can see now with we've had, 4 great draft picks in the last 5 years. They've totally blown them. You know, Saquon Barkley's going to be on another team next year doing really good, and we're going to be like, oh, what happened? Well, I can tell you what happened. The Mariners are garbage.
How many home games do you have left for your Giants?
Well, it's funny that you say that. I've been to 5 so far, and Cam's been there with every one of them. And in 2 weeks, we're flying down to Miami to go see him play the Dolphins. And then we're going to go to there's 3 more home games. We're going to go to one. We're going to go see them play the Cowboys on December 19th, and we're going to go to see them play the Dolphins on December 5th, but that's in Miami. So 2 more games, and then I'm going to have to start evaluating the situation. I think in the next couple years, if they don't get out of and I've seen other friends like Ray Guerin and a bunch of other people just give up their season tickets, and I'm just like, and these guys have been going to Giant games since before I was alive, and I'm like, Ray, why give up your tickets? He's like, let's face it, they're terrible. They're not going to win, and I've heard their analogies on why, and it makes more sense than some of the other theories I hear on TV or from sportscasters or whatever. But
It could be worse. You could be a Jets fan.
yeah, that's just complete agony. Anyway, who we got on tap today, Rick?
Got a good show. We have Dr. Jack Breslin coming on, calling in at 7:20, 7:25. Dr. Jack is a longtime friend of mine who used to be a reporter from the Daily Freeman. He's now a professor at Iona College. We're going to talk about, and he teaches a lot of different ethics and journalism courses in Iona College. So we'll have a good discussion with Jack. 8 o'clock, we have Steve Peruso coming in. I don't know if we're going to talk about politics or sports, but Steve's always...
We'll try to keep him from not bashing local government, but, he's got a few things on his mind, which I actually want to talk about. Did you get a pamphlet on your door? Do you live in Kingston City?
No, I live in Lake Katrine.
Okay, so they probably... So you didn't get a pamphlet on your door, the Rise Up, the defund the police? Because you're in Lake Katrine, so they're not trying to defund the town of Ulster Police.
No.
I'm sure, like me, I'm sure Steve got one on his door because he lives on Fairview Avenue, and I live on Main Street. So we get them on our door. I got 2 of them in the last 4 days, so I'm sure he's going to want to talk about that. And who's our 8:30 guest?
8:30, we have Josiah Brown, who is on the board of NISTIA, which is the New York State Tourism and Hospitality Association, and he's a tourism expert. And I want to talk to Josiah about how things have been in tourism the last couple of months, because part of his job, he's known as New York Sherpa. He goes out and does a lot of shows, and I want to ask Josiah how things are going as far as people seem to be traveling. I mean, I'm sure they are, but he's right on the front lines of some of those travel shows and trade shows, so it'll be interesting to talk to Josiah about that. So he's really hooked into tourism and hospitality.
I would imagine that next week is Thanksgiving, next Thursday. And I would imagine a lot of people, last year, not too many people were traveling for Thanksgiving. There were a few, but there weren't as many. I would imagine this year there will be, a few more people traveling because of the
I'm sure.
Vaccine is out and such. But, I mean...
Did you get your booster shot yet?
Not yet, but I've only got my regular vaccine 7 months ago.
Right.
And when they told us when we got that we didn't need another one, I'm going to get a booster, but I'm not running out to go grab one right yet.
Yeah, I got one.
I just got the other one.
Yeah, well, I got mine.
And I'm also a pretty healthy guy. You know what I mean? I eat pretty good. I exercise. And, and I've been to 5 Giant games. 80,000 people. Maybe not every game because they're terrible, But I went to Saratoga 4 or 5 times this year, probably quite a few people there. So I've been around lots of people. I've been back and forth to the city a couple times. I've flown 11 times since COVID started. I know that was almost 2 years ago, but I've flown a bunch of times. I've been tested, God knows, 16 times for COVID prior to getting the vaccine. Never tested positive.
What's the policy at Giant Stadium as far as going in and
they don't ask you for anything. When you the first home game. Oh no, they asked you. Actually, I don't. It wasn't like the Yankees game where they were segregating people or anything like that. They don't. I think the first game you had to wear your mask to go to the bathroom. Now they don't even care. They don't ask, or there's no masks or anything. Some people wear them, some people don't. Most people aren't wearing them.
right?
You know, I don't really get too worried. If I see like a kid coughing that's not covering his mouth, sometimes I'll pull my shirt up over my face. You know, listen, I'm sure I've came in contact with somebody that's had it by now. I mean, I must have. I mean, with all the different people that I've crossed paths with, you know, flying, Giants games, Saratoga, you know, on buses, trains, automobiles, whatever. I must have got coughed on or grabbed a door or something. You know, I'm walking around uptown, all the restaurants I've been in, and
Sure.
God knows I must have come in contact with it. You know, I got the vaccine. I feel good. I see my doctor regularly every 6 months. I'm actually going today. I was just telling you before. I haven't had any food since last night because I got to get blood work done at 9:15 this morning. So I had to fast or whatever. So I see my doctor on a regular basis, and yeah, I'll probably get the booster. But I leave to go to Florida 2 weeks from today. I'll probably get the booster before then.
Right.
You know, I'll probably go up to Best Buy and just get it. But
It's interesting because, as I've said on the show before, when they first came out, I was traveling to Binghamton to get the regular shots, and it was quite a line.
That's right. I remember you drove all the way up there, and then you had to go back to get your second.
Yes, you have to go back to the same spot. So I went to a CVS in Binghamton. So with a booster, I mean, you can get them here in Best Buy. In Kingston or Lake Katrina, I guess, or Town of Ulster, whatever it is. But they had available over at a CVS last week at Hyde Park. So I walked in. You wouldn't have known that they were even giving them. There was nobody there, nobody getting a shot. You just walked in. Well, you had to make an appointment, but
Right.
not the urgency or the
Not like it was
before.
7 months ago, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
So-
I mean, my mom just went and got hers last week, I believe. I just got a flu shot last week, so
Yep.
I don't need to go get stuck with another needle today.
right.
I'll go in a couple weeks. I'll wait. I'll just go up to Best Buy and get it taken care of. Well, when
Hopefully-
they gave us the vaccine 7 months ago, they're you're good to go. Now we're not good to go. Fauci changes his mind. Every time he goes to the bathroom, dude. So it's just like, I don't listen to the word that guy says. So
Well, I think when they first came out, there was the idea that the shots were not going to last forever, and at some point you were going to have to get a booster. So
well, I mean, we do get the flu thing. We do that's kind of like a booster every year, like
Yeah,
the
but it's-
influenza shot.
yep.
I mean, we got vaccinated when we were born. Well, maybe I don't know. I know when I was born, I got an influenza shot. The Spanish flu? What year was that? That was in the 60s or the 50s or the 20s? When
I think it
was
was further back than that.
So you got vaccinated when you were born for the flu, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then you've been getting the flu. When did I didn't start really getting the flu shot till I was 40, but I never caught the flu prior to me getting the flu shot.
Right.
I never had the flu my whole life, but I didn't start getting the flu shot till I was 40. Then one day my grandmother or my mother's like, "You should go out and get the flu shot." I was like, but I never had the flu. They're like, "You should get it anyway." I was like, "All right, I'll get the flu shot."
Better be
Now I
safe
just
than
get one
sorry.
because my doctor's like, "You want a flu shot? They're free." I'm like, "All right, I'll take the flu shot." But hang on, I think we got a call. Hang on. All right, good. We got a caller. You bailed us out, George. What's up?
Hey, good morning, Rick. How you doing?
Great, George. How are you?
Super. Had a great day on the golf course yesterday. Played 9 holes. Saw Dan out there doing his thing.
Good deal. Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. I figured being 65 to 68 degrees, you'd be out there. Was Green Acres busy? A lot of people playing?
It was a little bit busy. Yeah, it was getting busy as I left because I left around noontime and stuff, and it was getting a little bit busy then. But the course is in great shape. The greens are good. The fairways are nice and green. And, hey, those guys are doing a fantastic job there. And they also did a great job on Veterans Day when they gave free golf to everybody, all the veterans. They was busy that day, too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how many vets do you think took advantage of that and played at Green Acres?
Quite a few, because we got there, my friend and I got there at about 1:30 because we had our Veterans Day services at the town hall last week here in the town of Esopus, and then we went to the community room for refreshments that was provided by the St. Remy Reformed Church and all. And we pulled all the winners from our raffle and everything else that we had. And we got there about 1:30, and it was busy then. And it was a great day had by all. They had little mini loaves of pumpkin bread, banana bread and stuff there, homemade chocolate chip cookies, bagels and rolls and coffee and juice and all. So Brian did a great job for the veterans.
Well, yeah, Brian Bonesteel, he's quite I like to call him the local entrepreneur because he's done so well at Green Acres. Don't you agree?
Oh, yes, that course has changed dramatically over the last 10 years and stuff.
Yeah, I was out last week. I saw you, and I guess, George, that Brian now is going to have next year the Ulster County Women's Championship, one of the rounds at Green Acres. So I think some of the local golfers that, pretty competitive, realize that it's getting to be more of a challenging golf course than before.
Oh, yes, especially that seventh hole where you go over water most of the way, and you either got to land it on the green because you got no landing spot really before the green.
Yeah, well, he cut down the reeds there.
Yep.
So you have a clearer view of your ball going in the water now.
Yep, I saw that yesterday a couple times.
Well, so what's going on this weekend? You taking it easy or are you doing something?
Right now, I'm probably going to take it easy a little bit. I know that the Port Huron Firehouse is having their pancake breakfast this Sunday morning, so I might go up to that. Today, I might have to go out and rake up some more leaves because I still got one tree that haven't fully dropped yet, but I got enough out there for about another pickup truck load out take down to the highway department here in town of Esopus, Port Huron area.
Well, I know you're in really good shape, but be careful. And if I don't see you at the Acres next week before Thanksgiving, have a great Thanksgiving, George.
Yep, you guys do the same, Lawrence. You and your mom.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, George.
And hey, eat and enjoy it. It's the one day where calories don't count.
I like that. That's a good one. I'm going to remember that as I'm eating my second piece of pumpkin pie.
Sounds great, everybody. Thank you much. You guys have a great day.
Thanks for calling, George.
Take care.
That's a man that is busy in his retirement.
For a retired guy, he is.
He does a lot of great.
He showed up at the Happy Christmas Fund twice this year and donated money. He's a really a big supporter of KCR and the Happy Christmas Fund, and we love George. We like him a lot.
How's what was the final tabulation
it's
there?
Still going. We're approaching $70,000 or somewhere in there. The money's still coming in. Thank you for reminding me of that. If you did pledge money to the WGHQ Happy Christmas Fund and you haven't had a chance to send it in, please send it in. Because next week we buy the gift certificates, the gift cards to Target to send to the families. And me and my mother have been so busy. That's actually what I'm going to do when Dr. Jack Breslin calls in. I got one more school to type. I've done probably 24 of them this week, or last week and this week, and I'm almost done. What I do is my mom compiles lists from the social workers and the school nurses, and then we got to get them onto labels and get them into the computer system. So I've been tallying up them and getting them in, and we got quite a big list this year, which is good because we've raised quite a bit of money so we can help out quite a few kids, which is good. So what we're going to do is once we get all those lists and all the labels printed out, And I think we have every school in now, too. And I'm going to do my last school at 7:30, and I'm done. So then we order the cards, then we stuff the envelopes, then we send them out to the schools. Most of the social workers and the nurses come and pick them up and hand them out. But some of them, we deal with schools up in, we're giving people cards up in Big Indian, Phoenicia. I mean, anywhere in Ulster County where there's as long as the kid is in school.
Right.
So, we deal with kids that are up in Onteora. I mean, right now I'm doing one for I think it's the Onteora School District, and I was just typing out a card where he's in Big Indian. I had to look up the zip code because I don't know what the zip code is in Big Indian. It's 12410.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah. I'm sure you don't know anyone in Big Indian, but Olive Bridge, all up in that area, and as well as down in Kerhonkson, Ellenville, Warseen, anywhere in Ulster County, really. So, yeah. So if you've pledged money to the Happy Christmas Fund, please send it in. Make the check payable to WGHQ Happy Christmas Fund. P.O. Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. We've had our best year ever. Last year was our best year ever at 65. I believe we beat that already. I haven't tallied up everything, but with all the letters that I sent out, and I believe I sent out 1,088 letters. I believe I got almost back 547 of them. I think yesterday.
That's pretty good.
550. Yeah, I got quite back a lot of letters. And thanks to Ward Todd and Jess Davis, who gave me a list, and we're on the Ulster County Chamber of Commerce list too, but they gave me a list of everyone on, people on, there were 1,600 business names that they gave me. So I typed out, me and my mother and Tony, and we made a letter to send to all the businesses, and half of them sent, we sent self-addressed stamped envelopes, half of them sent it back. I was shocked. Me and Dan Gruder were talking about this yesterday. I was shocked with all the money that we got in. So it goes to show you how big our listener base is and how many people actually like donating. And me and my mother talk about this quite often too. We like the reason we donate to People's Place and Office of the Aging is we like to keep the money locally. We know where the money is going.
Sure.
So when Christine Hine asks us for something, or when she asks the Lions Club for a local, we know where the money's going. We know where she's going to do with it. We could see her on the street. Hey, how are those defibrillators working out, or how is this working out, or she'll tell you. She'll give you an update on it, or she'll send. You can read her monthly newsletter that she sends out. So, you help. She helps us. We help her, and then other people are doing that too. It's just the small tight community that we have. Is it's overwhelming with some of the, like Joe O'Connor, he must have 4 or 5 people, O'Connor and Partners, 4 or 5 different people hit him up for the Happy Christmas Fund. I wrote him a letter. Don Williams asked him for money. Chief Kyle Berardi asked him for money. Someone else asked him for money. He wrote a check to every single one of them. I was I thought to myself, I'm like, God, Joe, you wrote almost 4, a bunch of checks out here. He's like, nah, don't worry about it. I was like, awesome. But that's just the kind of, and then somebody else will ask us for money, and in turn we do the same thing. So, people helping people, right?
Yeah, it was amazing that just the hour or so I was there at Boyce's Dairy, the number of people who would just drop by and make donations.
Yeah, and you were there early. I think you were on at 8:30.
8:30, yeah.
You should have saw it like when the police were on and when Greg, Greg and Greg Chorvis and Bob Circusano started at 11. They were on for an hour. Everybody else had half hours, and then the police come in from 12 to 1, and they've been doing it for years. Between the two of them, I think they raised like $30,000 in 2 hours.
Wow!
So they're a big part of our success. But you should see all the food that comes in. I mean, and you remember me saying, "When's the chili coming out? When's the chili coming out?" I mean, I was starving at 8 o'clock in the morning, but they had so much food out. Sally Ward makes chili. Crystal Palumbo from Stewart, she brings in a ton of food. I mean, by the end of the day, I've drank so much eggnog, and I'm just I'm about ready to walk out of there. But it's a long day. It was a good time. I think next year, though, we're going to do it up in here. We have the room, as you can see now. I'm making when you came in this morning, you're like, "What happened?" It's all yeah. Well, we're going to make a bigger lobby in here. It's also a lot warmer in here. But I think now, and I remember as a kid. you know, when I used to be like 8 and 9 years old, and my parents, we used to be on John Street, they used to send all the employees, well, not, I don't know if they used to send them home, but they used to send the salespeople. They say, you guys are working on the road today, or maybe they just gave them the day off. But the Happy Christmas one used to take over the whole office. And they used to have 6 or 7 people answering the phone.
Wow.
So this year we had Pat and Diane, who did an excellent job. Bob
Yes.
Circusano supplied Pat and Diane. I think you got to meet them when you
Yep.
were there. They did an excellent job answering the phone. And that's how we were able to raise $70,000, because we had a team of people answering the phone. So I think next year we're going to do the same thing. Put them in my mom's office across the hall. Get the food out in my old office in here, and kind of spread that out, and then have everything in here. And that way I don't have to get up at 4 a.m, go set everything up down at Boyce Brothers, then break it all down at 5 o'clock at night. I mean, by the end of the day, on that Thursday, I'm like dying.
Yeah,
You know, it's a long, long day. So,
it is.
but it's all worth it. I mean, it's just to see the smile on the children's faces, and all the people that walk in. You know, you get a lot of the listeners that you don't get to see. You know, we used to do a KCR breakfast every March. We haven't been able to do that since COVID, and hopefully we'll be able to get back to that this spring and go back to the Spring Lake Trailer or the Spring Lake Firehouse up on Lucas Avenue. We used to do a breakfast.
Oh, okay.
You know, and we used to do it out at Howard Johnson until they tore it down when Orville Norman and them were alive. KCR breakfast for the listeners or whatever. But since COVID, we haven't been able to do that. I'm going to try to do that again. You know, kind of for the listeners. You know, you get to meet the guests, meet the hosts and the guests and all that. So they get to see some of the people come in, like George. You know, you come in. I didn't even know what George looked like until like 3 or 4 years ago. He came in and he started talking. I'm like, oh, I know you. I was like,
That's George.
I was like, you're a young-looking guy. I was like, I thought you were like old. He's like, no, man, I just retired.
I have Dr. Breslin calling. He says there's no answers.
Well, we're talking on the phone. I can't do 2 things at once, but I can answer and get him on now if you want.
What's that?
I could get him on now.
Yeah, why don't we
All
put
right,
him
hang
on?
Hang on, Jack. All right, so we're going to put him on now and skip break, okay?
Okay. Or we could take a break if you want.
Yeah, we'll go right to 8 o'clock. You there, Jack?
Yeah, we're here.
All right, good. Go for it.
All right, thanks, Lawrence. I have Dr. Jack Breslin, who is Associate Professor of Media and Strategic Communication at Iona College, and a longtime friend. And how you doing this morning, Jack?
Well, down here in lovely Princeton, New Jersey, with the Iona men's water polo team, this is the championship weekend. So I'm the academic moderator. I just kind of sit on the sidelines, watch and write up the game and cheer them on. So a fun little thing that I do for Iona, and I actually recommend it for the rest of my colleagues.
There you go. How is the men's water polo team at Iona?
Well, we right now are the low seed because, well, we have a lot of talent. It's a young team. But we play against teams like Princeton, Harvard, Brown, all of them Ivy League schools that have full scholarships. And we only have a few scholarships. And it's a little tough to compete with some of those schools. But, you know, if you're going to come and you're going to say, we're not going to win, then don't bother showing up. So watch out, Brown, at 1 o'clock. We could take you right out.
All right. Well, that sounds good. This is Rick Remsnyder with Dr. Jack Breslin of Iona College. We had you on, 3-4 months ago, Jack, and we just barely scratched the surface of all the things that you have done before you went to Iona. Started, I know I met you, what was it, in the 80s at the Daily Freeman? Was that when is my recollection somewhere in the same, the right decade?
Yeah, it was June of 79.
Oh, June of 79.
Got my Georgia ring on 79 to prove it.
Wow, it's
ladies and gentlemen, when I arrived at the Freeman, I had written a story about a black spiritualist named Father Divine who had a heaven out in Bloomington, and the then editor Shazi Dwalaby had recruited me right out of school, and thank you for the opportunity. But when you arrive at a paper like that, not everybody comes over and says, hi, how you doing, welcome to the Freeman. But the first person from over on the other reporter side, because I was on the life desk with Carolyn Marchetti, and right across from Ira Flitzfeld and sports guys, but the other reporters were on the other side. The only reporter to walk over and say hi was this gentleman. He came right over, "Hi, I'm Rick Remsnyder." The only one. The rest of them kind of looked over like, "Oh, that's the new guy, huh?" And there was only 6 or 7 of them right there in the Freeman, the old A&P building. So thanks once again, Rick, for welcoming me to the Freeman.
Well, it was my pleasure, and so then we have known each other for, let's see, let me do the quick math here, 42 years. So time flies when you're having fun, as they say.
We certainly had fun at the Freeman, too, yeah.
You know that the Freeman has relocated to a smaller storefront in Uptown Kingston, don't you?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they left
How are they printing the paper?
The paper for a number of years now has been printed upstate. They closed. They don't print it. They never. For the last, someone from the Freeman would have to let me know this, but my recollection is at least 10 years the Freeman has not been printed in Kingston, and which isn't unusual for a lot of newspapers now. So they didn't need that space to print anymore, and so then as the staff got smaller and smaller, I guess they decided they didn't need all that space, and now they're in Uptown Kingston, like I said, in a smaller storefront. So times change.
Yes, indeedy. Even though I was unceremoniously dismissed, it was still a great opportunity to work in my adopted hometown and learn about the newspaper biz and make connections and start a fun-filled career.
Before we get into something about what you do at Iona, what was the most memorable story that you, or the one that, let me change that, probably the story that you got the most reaction from when you worked at the Freeman? Do you remember?
Yeah, well, I was originally hired as the feature writer, and that's what I really enjoyed. But then the publisher, at least what I was told by our editor, Rob Borsellino, was that the publisher, Tom Geyer, thought that my talents were being wasted on the features. And I was like, no, that's why I came to do this. I'm really not into political reporting because I don't like people lying to me all the time. But you went over to the sports desk from the City Beat, and I took that over.
Right.
And the story that shook people up was when the then superintendent of schools, Saltzman, got his salary raise, and it was like $50,000, which was a heck of a lot of money in little old Kingston then. And basically it was just walking over there and saying, well, the budget was passed, but the salaries haven't been, and give me the list. And the gentleman who was like second in charge handed me this piece of paper and said, and I quote, "You're not doing any favors putting these salaries in the Freeman." And I said, well, I'm not here to do favors. So there was quite a reaction to that salary because of, he didn't have the credentials that some other superintendents had. He had been there a while, but it was done behind closed doors because that's how they did it. The raise was approved in a personnel meeting, closed door meeting, that they were allowed to under the Open Meetings Act. But they didn't come out and say, oh, here we are, this is your salary. So it got quite a reaction. Now, of course, Saltzman was not in town that week. He was on vacation. So when he came back, he had quite a little mess. And even at the first open meeting after that, the then president of the board, Len Kane, makes this statement about, what was in the Freeman. Well, what was in the Freeman was entirely accurate, pal. So, why don't you just keep quiet? Meanwhile, the other part that upset them was that the former board, the folks who had been in office up until that meeting, they were the ones who voted on it. And Lou Saltzman said to me that the then president of the board said, oh, I'm sorry, we can't give you more. And so then I called up the old board members to ask them, why you gave him this raise. And then meanwhile, everybody got upset. Oh, Sean O'Brien, who was then, with the radio station, he says, "You're resurrecting the dead." He said this on the air on his little show. Well, I didn't know how Shazzy would react, but I just pulled over, went to a payphone, and called him. And on the air said, "When was the last time you covered a school board meeting?" I didn't say pal. But, well, I said, the reason you ask these people is because they're the people who approved it. Because I'm not going to joust with the opinions of my colleagues, but resurrecting the dead is not correct. Well, you resurrect the dead because the dead are the ones who voted for it. So, yeah, that was the fun story that got quite a bit of attention.
I'm sure that in your classes at Iona College, you use these examples of government at its best/worst, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's something that in the journalism classes we try to talk about, what is the purpose of journalism, what is the watchdog role on government, and how do you fulfill that? Of course, the other fun part of that story, of course, not fun to Mr. Salzman, but our editor at the time, Bob Borsellino, he, on the front page, next to the story, he had a headshot of Lou Salzman, and he said, "Salzman, all smiles." So he said, he later admitted, I shouldn't have put that caption on there. Well, duh, yeah.
Well, it's things have. I don't think things have changed that much in how politics works, but that's an interesting story. This is Dr. Jack Breslin of Iona College. Happy to join us here for until 8 o'clock. If, Jack, before we get into some of the classes you teach at Iona, one of the things I found, and I don't think that we discussed this the last time in much depth, was your work at America's Most Wanted for John Walsh, and that you wrote, I guess it has to be the definitive book about the history of America's Most Wanted. How did that come about that you decided to write that book?
Well, at the time I was the publicist on the show. We had been on the air about 2 years and getting some good publicity, even though, we were on Fox. We only had 2 nights of programming at the time. We had less than 100 stations, and we were going up against the big boys, ABC, CBS, and NBC, that had 200 stations. So the show really took off. Now, meanwhile, Rupert Murdoch's News Corp owned Fox, and also it just bought a publishing house, Harper & Row, and a British publishing house called Collins. They merged it into, HarperCollins. And I got a phone call from an editor in New York for their paperback division, basically saying, well, we've been told to do a book about you guys, but, those kind of books don't do very well, and we don't want to do it. It's like, well, why are you calling? Well, during the next few months, we got calls from Bantam, Signet, New American, all these paperback companies that wanted to do a book on the show. So I got permission to do the book because even though I was a Fox employee, I had to go on leave of absence, and normally that wouldn't happen, but the then chairman, Barry Dillon, and the president of Fox, Jamie Kellner, and my own boss, Brad Terrell, said, no, you can do it. You can go on leave of absence. Well, meanwhile, I got called back every other week, but hey, I need some money. Okay, so the next phone call, though, was rather bizarre, that someone had met this gentleman who was the head of Parker Paperback. His name was Ed Breslin. And so the phone call comes in, and a temp intern gets the phone call, and she says, oh, there's a call from Jack Breslin from Ed Breslin. I go, no, I'm Breslin. This guy's Bell, because there was 2 guys, Ed Bell, Ed Breslin. So I got on the phone, and, oh, hi. Oh, you are Breslin. Oh, gee, you must be cousins someplace. Well, he reluctantly said, okay, we have to do the book. We've been told to do books on Fox shows. Okay, fine. So I took a leave of absence, wrote the book, even though, as I said, I was going back and forth between L.A. and D.C., where the show was being based, and our office was in L.A., and I did a lot of research because I like to travel and like to do little interviews, even in a jail cell, in a visitor cell in Michigan City, Indiana, with a guy named David James Roberts. He was the first guy we ever caught, FBI top 10, convicted of 5 murders, kidnap, arson, and rape. And I was sitting in that jail cell with him to interview him.
That's interesting.
Delightful gentleman. Of course, he didn't do it. I mean, he could sit here and tell us right now that, no, I didn't do that. And so that was in the book, and then 3 other murders, 3 other fugitives that we had caught. And just the gentleman at New American had given me the idea of, rather than just tell the show story, you go and say, okay, here's the bad guy. And then the show, you weave the history of the show between the bad guy's story, and in the end, the show is the hero. I took it one step further. I did 3 cases. I did Roberts, a guy named Mark Austin Goodman, who was on the U.S. Marshals Top 15, who escaped from prison 9 times. And the last one was when we profiled him. He was actually in jail. And the inmates saw it on the air and said, hey, that's that guy over at Eldorn. He was under another name. As they were escorting him, or one guy was escorting him to the main building, he slipped out of the handcuff because when he was shot during a bank robbery, his hand was disfigured. He was able to slip out, knock the guard down, and go over the fence. And the next day, he was walking around in a shopping mall in Tampa, Florida, with a bandage around the handcuff. We caught him. And then John List, who had killed his entire family in New Jersey, the largest, most horrible case in Jersey history. He had been on the run for 18 years and had taken a whole new identity. And the lady living next door called the show and said, I know where this guy is. He's living by another name, and is there a reward? And the phone operator didn't know, so she hangs up. Oh, I want a reward. So her son convinced her to call back. So she calls back and says, all right, is there a reward? And he said, well, yes, there is. And so, oh, I know where this guy is. And so that was our big caption, the biggest of that time. So it took me about 4 months to actually write the book, research it, and then my boss was really putting a lot of pressure on to come back. He couldn't understand. Why is it taking you so long? And I'm like, well, have you ever written a book, pal? So I actually started writing it on Thanksgiving Eve and finished it Christmas Eve, working at the same time. Going into work, 9 to 5, getting something to eat, sitting back down, writing until midnight. I was actually sleeping in my office and going and getting up and doing the work. So, as I say to my students, it was a great adventure. It was a wonderful achievement, to hold that first book and to realize what you've done. I always say to them, I wish for you the same fulfillment of a dream. Wanting to write a book, and there it is, you're holding it in your hand. As for the sales, well, I got caught in a political game. That Harper said, okay, we'll do it, but we're not going to promote it. They took out no advertising. The publicist who was assigned to it had left. The next publicist, we had set up more publicity. That we mailed out the book. They didn't even mail out the book to the critics, because one of the ladies on the show, her friend, was the book editor of the Chicago Tribune. And at a party Margaret had, there was this lady, and I said, well, thanks for reviewing the book. She said, we never got it. And so that lack of publicity, no advertising, it still sold a few thousand copies, 185,000, which is okay, but when you have a viewing audience of 19 million, all you need is one ad, and you're going to sell 1 million books.
Sure. Well, it's a very good book, and I happen to have an autographed copy, so thank you very much.
Well, you can actually sell it on Amazon today, and if it's not autographed, it's worth 50 cents.
There you
if
go.
It's autographed, it's only worth 25 cents because my autograph lowers the value of the book.
All right. We have Dr. Jack Breslin, he's a resident of Bloomington, still owns property there and comes up, and when he has some spare time, and from his job at Iona College. Let's turn the page literally a little bit and talk about Iona College and some of the classes you teach there. It's kind of an interesting profession, being a professor in communications now. I guess the overriding question would be, is there still a lot of interest for young men and women in the communications field?
No, it's interesting you say that because nationally there has been a bit of a drop in enrollments in mass comm programs. So we're doing fine. Our enrollment is still healthy, but we see nationwide that there is a lack of interest in particularly journalism, and then the big ones is always used to be public relations. Well, public relations is second now to what we refer to as digital media, because you really don't call it broadcast or cable anymore, because where do people get their television? It's through streaming. It's through other sources besides an antenna on their house. So, yeah, we have what we consider to be a top communications program with PR, advertising, digital media, and production journalism. But we see, nationally, in talking to our colleagues, everybody's experiencing a bit of a drop in enrollment in those fields. A lot of it goes into, parents wanting them to go into a profession where they're going to get a job and they're going to make money. And so the jobs in journalism are still there, but they have shifted into other medium besides print newspapers. And, our students do find jobs in the business, and whether it's doing journalism for a visual medium or doing a print or doing websites or some kind of podcast. So the jobs are still there, and they're getting them. Now, once again, folks, if it wasn't for Rick, I probably wouldn't have wound up at Iona, because at the time I was still working in PR for Fox, and I was coming up from Washington. Rick was covering the Iona Gales, and he said, "You want to come to a game?" I said, "Oh, Iona, yeah, I went to a game there once. They had that guy named Rulin, right?" So we went to the game, and we sat there, and it was the Pepsi Classic that Iona was leading Colgate by 20 points at the half, and they lost by, I think it was 8 or 9. So that was my first game. And then and after I left Most Wanted and came back up when we did Kingston, did some freelance work and so forth, I regularly went with Rick to the game. And then there was a weekly newspaper, the Westchester Weekly, that they had originally called Rick to do a story, but his bosses wouldn't let him. So I got a cover story in Westchester Weekly on the Gales. They also had paper in Fairfield, so I began to go to the games regularly and cover both Iona and Fairfield. Even though I wasn't going to the Fairfield games, I was basically writing up their website, just a small little report every column. So then when I was on the job market, getting my PhD at Minnesota, I got a call from them. And they said, "We understand you're on the job market." And I said, "Well, yeah, how did you know?" "Well, it's a small business." And as soon as I walked back onto campus there at Iona, I said, "This is where I want to be." So Rick had something to do with me going to Iona. So thanks again. That worked out okay.
Well, you're very kind, but your talent is what got you the job. But so right now, what are you teaching this semester at Iona?
Well, my students might have a different definition of the word teach when it comes to me. What I'm assigned to do. My primary course is media law and ethics, which is an interest that I've had for a long time. That's where I got my PhD in. We have somebody who does the journalism sequence, my colleague, Mitch Bard, and I occasionally fill in doing some of the journalism courses, particularly like a sports journalism course or the introduction course. So with media law and ethics, it's a required course. Otherwise, most of the students wouldn't be in there. To give them an appreciation of just what press freedom is all about, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, what are the legal rights and what are the ethical responsibilities. Because as we say, it might be legal, but is it ethical? The government decides what the laws are, but who decides what the ethics are? So help them understand just what are the parameters in what you can do as a journalist from the legal perspective, and then what you should do from the ethical perspective. And a lot of it comes down in the ethical to the journalist's personal belief. Would you run that story or not? How would you cover it? And the debate over ethical conduct, which the public perception is that journalists, PR people, advertisers, broadcasters are not ethical people. And so you got to convince them that, yeah, that is something that you should be responsible for. So it's a bit challenging because students walk in and the course doesn't have a good rep because Breslin, oh my God, this guy, all the work he gets and stuff. Yeah, my rep is strict but fair, and I try to give them a comprehensive look. And for some of them, it's a bit challenging because they've already got a Supreme Court case, and it's not a law school course. It's not meant to make them into a lawyer, even though we have folks from the pre-law program come in for political science. But I think that by the time they walk out of the classroom, they realize there's some value to this, and it's going to help them in their careers.
Well, having sat in on a couple of your courses, they're very informative, and I have to say quite entertaining because you have a wealth. Your background is so varied, going all the way back to starting out at the Freeman, and then working in publicity for NBC and Fox, and so you have quite a background to draw upon. When kids are looking at the job market now, I shouldn't call them kids, they're actually college students. If someone comes into your class and says, I'd really like to work for a newspaper, obviously things have changed and there's not as many job opportunities available. What do you tell them how they should get started looking for that particular industry?
Well, one thing that we stress to them is the idea of being convergent, a fancy word that means you've got to be multi-skilled. And so in the journalism program, not only do we stress print journalism, web journalism, where writing is that essential skill and reporting experience, but also being familiar with web design, of being able to do a radio soundbite, also being able to talk on camera, and some editing skills as well, that a lot of times a job might entail doing all three of those. There are quite a few outlets where the print newspaper, which also has a web presence, is at a cable news station, and also there's a local radio station, all three of them, for example, in Orlando, Florida. So you have to be convergent to do all of those. That you go and cover an event, you have to do a stand-up where you might be doing your own camera and sound work, and even hair and makeup if you want to look good on camera. And then you go and get back to the office, or even on a laptop in your car, write a 300-word story, and then get on the web and do a 30-second soundbite for radio. So if you have those schools, those skills, you are going to be marketable. So the more that you have besides your writing, that's really going to help you. So that's really, the advice that I give. Although, based on my experience with life, I don't give advice to students. I say to them, I'm making suggestions. One time a student said to me, well, based on my personality, what do you think I should do? And, I thought, well, this guy's a good talker. Maybe he should give PR. He wound up going to law school. He wound up going to Howard Law School and does that. And he said that my course, it helped him make that decision. But I would say what I suggest you do, do what you want, but this is how people are getting jobs today. A lot of people think that they're going to get a job right away at some big media outlet, especially at Iona. We're only 45 minutes from New York. They realize very quickly that they might have to travel a bit, and they might work in a smaller market before they work their way up to the big time. So, being convergent, having a lot of different skills is important.
Yeah, that's definitely the case, and so the more skills you have, the better chance you get have the opportunity to get a job. We have Jack Breslin, Associate Professor of Media and Strategic Communication from Iona College. This is Rick Remsnyder. We have 7 or 8 more minutes yet, Jack. One of the things that we have a proliferation now of blogs, podcasts, and just like everybody else. I shouldn't say like everybody else, but I like to listen to them. The one thing that kind of drives me crazy on some of these podcasts and or blogs is there really any, and I don't want to paint them all with the same brush, but it's just some of the blogs and the podcasts, it's almost like amateur hour, and there's no such thing as needing 2 sources anymore. You can spew out any type of information that you want, and nobody's really fact-checking this information. Do you find that to be true?
Absolutely. The filter that used to be there, where there was an editor, or there was a fact-checker, or there was a trained journalist who went and got the 2 sources. As we used to say, if your mother says she loves you, get another source. That isn't true today. And the lack of this professional journalism really turns the public against journalists that, nobody's checking this stuff out, and they just say whatever they want. The rise of the citizen journalist that is covering these stories and then getting on whatever medium they're using and says whatever comes to the top of their head. Now, of course, legally, they can get themselves in quite a bit of trouble. That if you go on the air and you say something that you know is false, or you're reckless with regards to whether it's false because you made it up, you are liable for libel. The person can sue you and recover damages. But some of them don't even understand that. So, yeah, there is that problem with fake news and then the biased perspective. However, one of the exam questions, has objectivity ended? Do journalists not even bother being objective, or these people who call themselves journalists, and they're really not, although they're reporting the news and interpreting the news the way they see it? Does the public even expect journalists to be objective? That they go to a news source that suits their political philosophy in television, whether it's Fox or MSNBC or CNN, in print, whether it's New York Times, the Post, or some kind of blog, or some kind of political website. They really don't care that the fact that it's biased. So that's a challenge that we have in teaching our young journalists about how to be objective, how to get the facts, and not insert your own opinion. So, yeah, it is a considerable problem.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic that you could go on endlessly about how do you actually get the quote-unquote straight scoop on a story. You could, we won't delve too deeply into it because we don't have a lot of time, but if you look at the Kyle Rittenhouse coverage on Fox as opposed to MSNBC, it's almost like you're seeing 2 different trials. So but here's an interesting one for you, Jack. The fact that the judge in that trial has taken the very unusual step of banning MSNBC from coming into the courthouse because they allegedly were one of their, I guess they're calling it now, someone who was hired by them, not on the staff, followed the jury bus. Are you going to get into that topic at a future class of yours?
Yeah, in media law and ethics, part of the course is first introduction to First Amendment, and then what ethics is. And then we look at problems like libel and privacy and copyright, offensive speech. Then we get into specific areas in journalism from the legal and the ethical perspective. So we spend several classes on press access and covering trials. That balance between the Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial versus the implied right of the public to know what's going on and to the media to cover the trial. So there is no guaranteed First Amendment right to gather news. I know that sounds a little bizarre, but the journalist really doesn't have any greater right than the public of access. So there are times where a courtroom will be closed because a juvenile is testifying or an undercover police officer, but it's very difficult, almost impossible, for a judge to completely close a trial. So does that mean excluding a member of the media? Well, there was a little problem in the Trump administration once where they were not credentialing certain media that didn't report the way they wanted. And the court, a lower court in Washington, said, no, you can't deny that. You can't deny someone access based on their viewpoint. That's viewpoint discrimination. So in that case, the media outlet MSNBC, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not licensed to practice law, but should they go and file suit? Should they go after that judge taking away their credential? They might have a very good case there of him banning them from the courtroom because he didn't like what they said or alleged that they did something illegal.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, and we'll see if that happens in the future. Jack, it's been great having you on again. As I said at the last time I had you on, I think that we just barely scratched the surface of what you do in your long and illustrious career. What's on the horizon for Mr. Breslin between now and the end of the year? Anything besides the men's water polo team?
Well, I got a few writing projects I'm trying to finish up, and this particular time, as far as sports, is my favorite time. Going to small college football playoffs.
Oh.
That Olivia, I've gone to like about 20 of these NCAA playoff games, even the Division III National Championship in Texas and Salem, Virginia. Yes, I am not normal and proud of it, but going to these small college games, these playoff games, is really a lot of fun. And sometimes, if I'm teaching sports journalism, I'll go to the SID and say, hi, can I come and cover and get a copy? And they always say yes. So I got a nice, cozy little warm press box to sit in rather than out in the snow with some of these. So that's the next couple of weekends, going a little road trips to some of these games and then bring them back to the class.
All right, Jack. Well, have fun. Have a great Thanksgiving, and don't be a stranger in Ulster County. We'll see you soon.
Okay, we'll be up. Take care. Always a pleasure. Thanks much.
All right, that was Dr. Jack Breslin. We're going to take a break before we have Mr. Steve Peruso.
And we got birthdays coming up, too.
Oh,
right?
Birthdays, yeah.
Awesome. We'll be back in a few.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM. And also online at mykcr.org.
There was this one time I went snorkeling in the Caribbean when I was a kid. It really just blew my mind. We saw the most beautiful corals. I remember thinking they were waving at us as they moved with the ocean. And then there were all these amazing fish. I'll never forget it. It completely changed the way I look at the ocean.
Most of us have a memory of being in nature we'll never forget. Let's protect the world's natural places so more memories can be made for generations to come. Visit worldwildlife.org.
This is Greg Chorvis, and once again, the WGHQ Happy Christmas Fund is asking you to help the needy this holiday season. For the last 50 years, the WGHQ Happy Christmas Fund has helped less fortunate families have a happier holiday. Look for our collection boxes at the local branches of the Ulster Federal Credit Union, Rondout Savings Bank, the Mid-Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union, Ulster Savings Bank, and at the Kiwanis Ice Arena in Sorgenes. Thank you very much, and have a happy and Merry Christmas.
Hi, this is Tony Marmo from Norman Staffing, and we've been bringing together employers and job seekers since 1980. If you're an employer and have job vacancies, let Norman Staffing help fill them with permanent or temporary workers. We screen, interview, and recommend the best candidates for your company. We make the employment process easier and faster for you. Please call Norman Staffing for your employment needs at 338-9111, 338-9111, or normanstaffing.com.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Grammer. Wounded Warrior Project supports injured veterans by connecting them with fellow warriors, by serving them through mental health and wellness programs, and by empowering them to live on their own terms. No one should face a battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Jared Mans from the Spring Lake Fire Department, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
A registered Democrat.
He has. Okay, we're back.
Okay.
Before we get into politics, let's do a little birthdays.
Yeah,
do
this Rick
do we have
Remsnyder
3 of them
back.
today, Rick?
What's that?
Do we have 3 of them today, or?
We got a lot of birthdays here.
No, I'm saying, do we have one for each day? Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Yes, we
Good.
do. Yeah, I'm going to do Friday. Steve Peruso's in the studio. He's going to be our
We
guest.
put him on birthday detail today.
Yeah,
I did it last time. I enjoy it.
Good.
Look, I need help here. And
You
unlike
probably can't read some of them. I have a hard time reading them, too.
and unlike one of our hosts who will remain nameless,
Yeah, who doesn't like to read
who doesn't like
birthdays.
to do, hey, Hugh, come on, really?
doesn't
Hugh
like
Reynolds.
birthdays.
I knew who you meant. I knew who you meant before you said the name.
I mean, really, you're
doesn't
not
like
big.
to read
You're too
Actually,
big
last
time.
week he was out because he wasn't feeling well, and it was Phyllis's birthday. And he didn't submit her birthday. And I'm like, you got to submit the birthday if you want her to win, bro.
Well, I love Phyllis McCabe, and
Yeah, she's a
Phyllis
nice lady.
worked for me for about 5 years as a secretary, and when I was in tourism, did a fantastic job. I like Hugh, but come on, Hugh, you're not
Yeah,
that
you
big
gotta
that
read
you.
a birthday.
Wait a minute, you're
You
not
gotta read
that
a
big
birthday
that
every
you
now and
can't
then,
that you can't read the birthdays.
I tell you, Mario loves reading them. It's like, besides, I mean, he loves getting into politics, but he gets
They
excited
forget the
about
little
birthday.
people they met on the way up.
What's that saying?
You meet the same people on the way up as you meet on the way back down, something like that.
Yeah, that's it. All right, so we've hammered enough time on this. Friday birthdays, which is today, November 19th. We want to wish a happy birthday to Tom Van Valkenburg from your friends and family, wife Cheryl, children Joel, Megan, and Seth, Philip, and the grandkids Landon, Alana, and Lucas. And also happy birthday to Janice Loring. I hope that's right. I can't tell if it's an L or an H. I'm assuming it's an L. From your friends at the Town of Ulster Senior Club. And the winner of the famous cow pie from Boyce Dairy Milk House is Janice Loring. Yes, it is an L. So we're going to move on from Friday to Saturday, Steve.
Okay, and there's only a couple, and let's see, the first one from his friends at People's Place is Jeff Huth, Huth. Jeff Huth, happy birthday to you from your friends at People's Place. And the other one is happy birthday to Cindy Jones from her friends at the Friendship Bible Coffee.
Okay.
And you want me to give the winner?
Yes, please.
And the winner from Boyce's Dairy for a famous cow pie is Cindy Jones.
I don't know if that's a Cindy Jones who used to work at the Freeman when I was there. Maybe it is. She was in advertising. But anyway, thank you, Steve.
You're
Sunday,
welcome.
we only have one birthday, and that means that person's going to be the winner of the famous cow pie, is Lucas Tenor. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. From your friends and family, Mom and Dad, Great Graham and Grand Craw. I'm just reading this now. Great Grandma Van, Grandma and Grandpa Van Valkenburg, and also Landon and Alana. And Lucas Tenor is the winner. So that's it. So how are you this morning, Steve?
I'm well. I'm very well, Rick.
Video's off, so just so you know.
Thank you. I want to thank you for having me on again. I really enjoy it. I'm on vacation from work, so this was a nice way to start it. Today's my first day. And
Great.
Yep, so it was a good way to start it.
Well, I was looking at the election results, and you got 45% of the vote, which is your first time running for elective office in the first ward of for alderman in the city of Kingston. How was that, even though you didn't win, how was that experience overall?
It was tremendous. Obviously, that night, election night, the initial reaction is disappointment.
Sure.
But, it went away quick, the disappointment, because I reflected back on so many good things. I met so many people, had tons of interesting conversations with people in the ward, what they want going forward, what they feel the city needs. It was very enlightening. It's everybody wants something different, and it was nice to just talk to them. Some people were concerned with, things like flooding in their yards, and other people were worried about housing and how it was going to affect. Was it going to affect Ward 1? Ward 1 has tons of apartment complexes in it, as you know. Fairview, Fairmont, Stony Run. There's tons of them, probably as many as any other ward, if not the most. Excuse me. Got these fall hay fevers going. So it was interesting. And the people that have reached out to me, very, very rewarding hearing from people in the community, thanking me for the effort, just saying what a good thing it was to do. And that was nice to hear. And like I said, no regrets. I'm glad I did it. Now I've got 2 years to think about if I would do it again.
Yeah.
I did save the signs.
There you go.
I didn't throw them away.
We
I don't know.
lost by less than 70 votes, so that was a very close race.
Yeah, especially now in this city. I mean, Democrats won every seat on the council again.
Sure.
So yeah, and the countywide. And it's funny because if you look around in the state, I think the Republicans gained most places except for here in Ulster County and Kingston. So it shows you what we are dealing with here.
Well, countywide, the Republican Party lost 4 seats in the legislature, so it's now, instead of 12-11, it's 16-7. So what is interesting is that a lot of the towns are Republican, particularly in the southern part of the county. There's supervisors and the town board members. So, but as far as countywide, it is a Democratic county and city. It's almost, I can say this, it's almost unhealthy in the city when you have all 9.
It is
of one party.
It is unhealthy. And that was, I think I remember we talked about this. And I couldn't say it enough as I was campaigning, that I was non-enrolled. I was on the Republican line, but I was non-enrolled, never have been. And a lot of people, I think a lot of the support that I did get on Election Day was because of that. Many, many people spoke about the two-party system and how it's, not healthy. We need balance. That was a big word in my campaign, and we have none. I mean, what kind of balance can you have? A Democratic, far-leaning left Democratic mayor and 9 Democratic councilmen. It's not healthy.
Yeah, well, I give you credit for going out there and campaigning, and you and I have one thing in common. I also ran for office, and I'm 0 for 1 in the village of New Paltz. So
well, now
I know what it's like to run. The video is not working, Lawrence. I just got a text.
Is that what? Somebody's texting.
Yeah, somebody texted me. So we got to not the people care.
Now that I'm done doing the thing, I actually had a chance to read the paper.
Oh, it's
forgot to turn it on. Thank you for that.
It's not a problem. We want people to see Steve's smiling face. So, I live in an apartment complex in Lake Katrina Apartments. When you go and campaign in a complex, is there any overriding issue from apartment owners?
Well, that's funny you bring that up because you're not allowed to in most. They have no soliciting signs all over the place.
Oh.
And my opponent actually did a lot of campaigning, and she ignored the rules
Oh.
and just blatantly just went in and then lied about it and was caught in it, said that she was invited in by a person, a friend of hers, that invited her into the complex, and it was not the case. She was going around door to door. I know people, friends of mine who I saw that she came up to their door and knocked.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, I tried to, listen, I pride myself on the fact that I did not do any mudslinging. I brought up nothing during the campaign. I ran on my own, just my own qualifications, and I figured win or lose, that's the way I was going to do it. And but now that it's over, you know, it hurts me a little bit that she chose to do that, but that's her business, not mine.
Is the city of Kingston, and I don't know the answer to this question, but I think I read it the other day, are they back to holding the Common Council meetings open to the public now?
As of right now, no, and I don't understand that at all. There's plenty of space there where they could keep safe distancing. I don't know, about vaccinations or any of that, and it has nothing to do with that. They could do it. They need to be live and get people back there live, voicing their opinion, especially now with all nine still remaining Democrat. They need to have people's voices heard, and I think they will be heard if they can let them in. I don't think people get as involved with the Zoom meetings and things like that. I, for one, am going to continue to follow it and attend some Common Council meetings. Hopefully they will be live, and they need to be.
No, I agree with you. I work for...
When did they stop going live with that? Before COVID? Was it because of COVID? Because I used to watch it on Channel 23.
During COVID, they shut it. During COVID, they went into the protocol of closed meetings.
No one there.
Then they opened it back up, I believe, briefly. I know they did because I spoke at the one for the emergency vehicle, and there was hundreds of people there that night, and no issues. We didn't hear of any super spreader or anything like that.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, it was closed again.
Yeah.
So it needs to be opened. A lot of things I think need to be opened.
Yeah, the public has a right to express their opinion.
We're putting 100,000 people in stadiums, in arenas for concerts. We can't put 30 people in a council chamber.
Right, and this is on the 5th floor of the Ulster County office building, right?
No, this is down at City Hall.
We're talking about the Common Council.
The Common Council. Okay, my bad.
Stay with the program,
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
It's a 6th floor, by the way. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I worked for a chain of newspapers in southern Ulster County. I covered the town of Gardner as a reporter, the town of Shawangum, and the town of Plattekill. They've been open. They're open to the public. Masks are optional. And I'm just going to say this because I agree with you 100%. If you don't have those meetings open to the public, the perception is you really don't care about the public comment. I'm sorry.
I agree.
It makes it a lot easier.
Easier for them to hide things.
And Zoom is not the same. I mean, let's be honest, a lot of seniors, and not even just
They
seniors.
don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
you
don't have good internet service. It's hard.
I just participated in. We couldn't get, schools are not allowing meetings. And as you know, I'm a New York State official. And basketball, we just had actually 2 Zoom meetings. And I did it. It wasn't easy, the first one. I was fumbling around, but I found my way through it. But I agree, people don't want to take the time or don't know how to do it, especially elderly people.
Yeah,
like
and
myself.
it's not the same. And,
It's not. It's not.
When at the hardest time of the pandemic, Ulster County closed down. When I was a tourism director, we had to use Zoom, and it's you can make it work, but it's not the same.
No.
And as far we used to have when I was a tourism director, we used to have a tourism advisory board. And I wouldn't have even thought of trying to do Zoom calls because I know half the people there wouldn't know how to use Zoom. So we didn't have any meetings.
I think you summed it up perfectly, Rick. It's not the same. It's just not. And maybe that's what they like about it. You know, I'm wondering if they like the fact that they can't get as much pushback on things, as much voice from the public.
Right. Well, it should be open. So.
It should.
We got to get you and Ellen DeFalco and Joe DeFalco hammering that issue because I know.
I just left Joe down at Rogers Corner having coffee. Joe's a great guy. He's very smart. He follows all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And him and Ellen will badger them.
Yeah, Ellen used to be, I really like Ellen. She used to be a
great lady.
Volunteer for the tourism department and did a lot of great work for us. Anyway, it's 8:17 on a Friday morning. I have Steve Peruso in. Let's talk some sports because I know that you and Sal still do a show. Do you still do a show or you don't?
No.
Oh, what
radio.
happened there?
Well, our other radio station in Kingston decided we weren't a good fit.
Oh, Radio
for them.
Kingston?
Radio Kingston. We kind of we didn't fit their bill.
Oh, okay.
I guess you could say. At the time, we were chastised for little things like, at the time, the Washington Redskins, which were the Washington Redskins, we would do our football show predictions, and we called them the Washington Redskins because that's who they were. We got in trouble for that.
The Washington football team,
right? And we would, and if it was now, we would call them the Washington football team. But I grew up all my life with them being the Washington Redskins, the Cleveland Indians, and if that's their name, and we're doing a sports show, that's the way we're reporting them. So they take us to task on that. I work, and they wanted us to attend these, I don't know what you call them, like kumbaya meetings, social gatherings. I don't know what they were, but Sal and I didn't want to do it. We wanted to talk sports for an hour a week. So it didn't work out, and then they closed their station for the pandemic, and we were going to do a off set thing, and it just they kind of told us, listen, we're going separate ways. So we're actually in talks with Lawrence here to possibly do it here on a Monday night, and we're trying to get something together with that. And Sal that we're talking about is Sal Guido. It was the Good Sports with Sal G and Stevie P, and we definitely look forward to doing it again because we enjoyed it, as you do. I know you do.
Yeah. Well, let's pretend I'm Sal Guido now. If we were going to talk about this weekend's games, what would you highlight? The Giants and the Bucks on Monday night?
Well, of course, because that was one of the problems Sal and I had. I think with any famous or infamous sports talk shows, you usually have different views. Each guy.
Sure.
Sal and I were exactly the same.
Oh,
Yankees, Giants, Rangers, we were almost identical. So we couldn't get that little
friction
animosity going, which is good for shows. So, but if you were Sal and we were talking, we would definitely talk about the Giants. I think a big thing that Sal and I would talk about, and I'd like to get your opinion, is they've wanted parity in the NFL for years, and I think they've reached it. There's not that clear-cut team right now. I mean, if you had to pick teams to come out of both divisions for the Super Bowl, I think every time a team seems to be rising above, they have a terrible loss.
Yeah, like the Rams.
The Rams are exactly who I was thinking of.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's true. It's hard to find a team that you would say right now, that team's going to be in the Super Bowl. I kind of like still in the NFC. I still kind of like. I think it's going to come down to the Packers and the Bucks in the championship game. Who knows?
Right.
The Titans. Without Derrick Henry,
that's a big, super terrible loss.
He was. But here's my feeling. Even when they had Derrick Henry, they lost to the Jets. How can you be a Super Bowl contender
Well,
if you lose to the Jets?
And then who did they beat 3 weeks after that? They just destroyed 3 great teams after that.
I know.
And I hate to say it, but did you see the Patriots last night at all?
A little bit. Yeah, their defense is pretty good.
I mean, when they separated Brady and Belichick, everybody said, now we'll find out who it was. It was both.
Right.
I mean, they both haven't missed a beat. I mean, Belichick was down a little bit, but I mean, he rebuilt that team quick. I mean,
I think when it's all said and done, that people are going to look back at that draft and say the Belichick bamboozled the Jets again because they got Mac Jones. And, who knows the quarterback for the Jets if Wilson will ever develop. But to me, just looking at him, he seems awfully small and frail. I'm a little worried about his health.
Yeah, well, we'll
see.
Yeah, we will see. And I guess now they announced that it's not going to be either one of the young guys, not White or it's going to be Flacco.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, yeah.
I mean, where does that come from? Why not stay with White?
I don't understand. I got tickled, though, because the whole thing on sports radio now is Rex Ryan killing Robert Saleh and Saleh coming back at him. Hey, in my opinion, Rex Ryan's got a job to do now. He's a commentator.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's clicks.
And listen, if Saleh can't take a little bit of that in New York with the Jets, then get out because it's not going to get any better.
What happened to all that enthusiasm on the sideline? He looks like he's dead in the water.
I think the Jets do that to you. It's just like they're fans. Sal and I had Jet fans calling up. One gentleman, Mike Dittis, I believe it was. Do you know Mike?
Yeah.
Teacher?
Sure.
Diehard Jet fan. Yeah. We had to talk this guy off the ledge every Monday night. He would call up, and it was just, week after week with the same old Jets. And if Jet fans they're snake bit, and the drafts, the coaching, it's tough to be a Jet fan, which I'm not.
Yeah. Here's something that I'm sure you're on top of. Knowing him from when he was a coach here at Kingston High School for 1 year, Dave Gettleman, the GM of the Giants, always seems to be under a lot of fire. If the Giants don't make the playoffs this year or finish, a game or two under 500, is he gone, do you think?
That's a tough call because the Maras are a loyal bunch. Yep. Always have been. They don't seem to go through coaches and systems, GMs, the way the Jets, for instance, do. I think if you see improvement all throughout, and I think you're seeing it already. The offensive line seems to be, and it's still a hodgepodge outfit. They got guys going down, changing positions, and they seem to be run blocking a little better.
Are you talking about the Giants?
We are.
Yes.
All right. You're not going to see them get better until management gets better. Okay, so let's move on to a different subject. The Giants are terrible because the Maras are garbage owners.
Can you let us finish, Larry?
No one seems to get this through their head about the Giants. They are
so
terrible.
Wait a minute. When you say management,
I know this because I've been following them for 49 years of life. The Maras are garbage.
Sounds
owners.
like Mike did us now. With
they
the Jets.
are garbage.
Listen. So did you hear Rick's original question? Or do you just jump in and start yelling?
No, I heard you in the other room. No, let's move on to a different topic besides sports.
Okay, we'll move on to another topic.
I'm tired of talking about the Giants. They're terrible.
To finish your question.
Dave Gettleman is a bum.
Well, we know how he feels about it.
Jason Garrett is a terrible offensive coordinator. And guess what? John Mara is going to keep them next year. You know why? Because he's a terrible owner. He's going, let's keep him another year. Oh, they're going to work it out. They're terrible.
What about Daniel? What about Jones? What about Jones?
Jones, well, he's still on a rookie contract. I think if Daniel Jones had an offensive line, he could be okay. But the problem is that management will not get him an offensive line. Now, didn't you think the defense was going to be good coming into this year? I thought they were going to be better than they were last year.
I think they've improved since week 1.
Well, that's not saying a lot. They've got 2 wins.
I'm looking for.
Did you get those? Now, before you got on the air, we talked about Dan Gruner was on the air yesterday. We've been getting these flyers put on our door about defund the Kingston Police Department. Now,
Garbage.
You didn't get those up on Fairview Avenue, did you?
No, well, that's because
I don't think she made it into your
That's
neighborhood.
because I've got a sign on my lawn saying.
Well, I think she's afraid to come to your front door because
she should be.
Well,
She should be
I
afraid.
live above a restaurant, so I'm not going to be able to, pull the shotgun out.
She should be. I'm not going to shoot anybody,
I'm
obviously.
not gonna shoot anybody either.
But I will voice my opinion strongly to anybody that comes to my
Me and Dan
door.
Gruner got him twice. Okay, I got one on Monday and I got one on Wednesday. So he came to work yesterday. He's like, if she had her house robbed and had her got pistol whipped, or say she got someone came and robbed her house, who's she going to call? Is she going to call the police? Because they're not going to come and help her.
Yeah, they are, because that's their job, and they do it. And they do it every day.
Where are you going to go? What are you going to accomplish by putting flyers on random taxpayers' doors to defund the police department? And are you allowed to do that? That's what me and Dan Gruner were arguing yesterday on the radio, or arguing off the radio. Are you allowed to do that? Are you allowed to solicit doors like that?
I believe you need to put a no. This is my understanding and I learned this during the campaign. I believe you need to put a no soliciting sign up, or
if you do that, then they're not allowed.
Then they're not allowed. I believe. I'm not 100% because I never got a solid answer from that, but I believe.
Now I know with the signs on your lawn, if you don't. Like if they come, like if a politician comes and knocks on your door, sir, would you support us? They have to ask you to put a sign on your lawn, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't put a sign. I put over 100 signs out, and I made sure that I got verbal commitment from every single one. I didn't, even if somebody told me, "Oh, my neighbor wants one," I didn't put it till I actually spoke
Until your neighbor
with
said,
that
"Hey,
person,
Steve, I want one."
and they said yes. Because I don't think it's, even if you know it, I don't think it's right unless you
saw the
hear
thing
it.
on Facebook with Dave Donaldson, right? What Phil Erner was doing. Someone in Phil Erner's campaign was going around taking Donaldson signs down off people's yards.
Well, do you understand that Phil Erner's campaign?
No, I know the whole story.
Do you know they were being paid $15 an hour?
Yes, I know, to go do stuff like that. I know.
I mean, that's what we. That's
he
what
wouldn't even
we
show up here to do the debate with Suzanne Timbrook and Donaldson.
That's what we were up against. We weren't up against just our opponents. We were up against a machine that was financed by Peter Buffett,
Yeah, I know.
flat out,
I know.
who is the biggest cancer to our city right now. If we're gonna start talking, talk the talk, and that's the fact. That's a fact.
Well, I appreciate you, Steve, coming in and helping us out today, filling in the 8 o'clock spot. Who's up next?
I have Josiah Brown
Is he
from
calling in or is he
New
coming
York
in?
Sherpa.
Oh, that's right. You call him the Sherpa. That's
Sherpa.
Right. Is he calling in or coming?
He's calling in.
He's calling in. All right. Well, Steve, thanks for coming in.
No problem. I wish we could
enjoy
have
your
finished talking
vacation.
sports, Rick.
Yeah.
We'll do that next time.
I want to come back when we can muzzle Larry for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, right.
So we
We're
can
not
talk
gonna
some
talk
sports
again if you come
How
back.
about we
this
talk?
This isn't a sports radio.
Hold on. What?
This isn't sports radio. This is talk radio.
Okay. So maybe we can.
I told you what you could do. If you and Sal want to do a show, we
talked about, Rick and I were talking
But
about
that's
that.
on a Monday night at 6 o'clock, not 7 to 9 in the morning.
No, 6. No, it's got to be 6 o'clock at night.
At night, right? Because you
All
want to do
right.
it before Monday Night Football, right? That's what we talked about.
Yeah,
All right,
and
good.
we could wrap up Sunday's games, talk some hot stove baseball.
All right, good.
All right, thanks for having me,
All right,
Larry.
have a
Rick,
good
a
weekend,
pleasure.
Steve.
Always a pleasure.
All right, we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to have Josiah Brown on, and it's always great to see Steve.
Okay.
Man, he gets fired up.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Have you ever experienced a wish come true? For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. One song, one dance, one game, one adventure, one moment changes everything. Make-A-Wish needs your support to grant the wish of every eligible child. Visit wish.org now to help grant more life-changing wishes. Together, we can transform lives, one wish at a time.
Hi, I'm Steve Thomas for Habitat for Humanity Restore.
Habitat Restores are nonprofit home improvement stores and donation centers that sell new and gently used furniture, building materials, and appliances to the public at a fraction of the retail cost. The Ulster County Restore at 406 Route 28 in Kingston needs your donations. Call our hotline at 845-853-7499 to schedule your free pickup. And thanks.
Everyone is talking about healthcare these days. America spends twice that of other developed countries on our healthcare system, yet our health ranks near the bottom. How can we stop spending so much and getting so little? By shifting to a system that gives more patients access to strong primary care. Primary care can help make America healthy again. To learn more about the benefits of primary care, visit www.healthisprimary.org. This message is brought to you by America's Family Physicians.
Screening exams for breast, lung, or colorectal cancers are necessary to detect and treat disease at its earliest, most curable stage. But you may have some concerns and questions. Answer your questions and ease your fears by visiting radiologyinfo.org. In addition to information on screening and wellness, you'll find more than 200 descriptions of radiologic exams, procedures, and treatments to help you prepare. Get informed and be prepared. Visit radiologyinfo.org. Produced by the Radiological Society of North America and the American College of Radiology.
Hi, this is Winnie from the Rosendale Seniors, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio has been brought to you by the First Savings Bank in Ulster County that still remains local to this day. Ulster Savings Bank, a community bank that's invested in local business, invested in community, invested in you. Ulster Savings Bank, your one-stop resource for everything local. Locations throughout the Hudson Valley and online at ulstersavings.com. Member FDIC.
Okay, we're back. Our last half hour, we got your guest on the phone, Josiah Brown, right?
Yes, sir. Josiah, are you there, sir?
Radio Rick Remschneider.
I like that name. Radio Rick. I like that name. Radio Rick. That's his new name.
Well, I've been called a lot worse. So,
I like that name, Radio Rick.
Well, it's great to have Josiah. He's. Are you still on the? You're still on the board of the New York State Tourism Industry Association, correct, NISTIA?
I am immediate past chair.
That's
good. Years ago, when I was on that board, I said to some of my colleagues, if there's ever a global pandemic, that's when I'd love to be leading this organization. So, I was chair through the pandemic, and then in October, I got to pass the gavel over to another very talented individual and became immediate past chair. So.
Well, NISTIA is one of the top organizations that has anything to do with tourism and hospitality in the state of New York. And you made a fantastic hire, Bob Provost, to head the organization. I've had Bob on the show. He's a man of many talents and certainly knows the industry. And as just a little background, when I was tourism director, I worked very closely with Josiah, who is better known as New York Sherpa for all his travels throughout the state. Let me ask you, before we get into some of your shows recently, Josiah, I know that you had the annual conference, the NISTIA conference, a couple weeks ago, and you had Governor Hochul on. Talk about that a little bit, and I know talking to you off the air that you're convinced that she's really strong for boosting tourism and hospitality in the state of New York, correct?
Yeah. I think that the way that Hochul spent the time in New York that she did, she went to hundreds of thousands of small businesses. She went to tourism businesses. She had actually attended our conference before. And, all across the state, kind of north of the George Washington Bridge, you get these different places with different community types. Of course, we know there's a kind of a Hudson Valley community type. There's a Catskill community type. But you get out into canal communities, and you get out into Western New York with kind of the we lost industry 30 years ago, what do we do communities out in Western New York. And she spent just day after day after day meeting with small businesses, small tourism businesses, agricultural businesses. And when she became governor, what I said to a lot of my colleagues is I said, I'm not sure we have ever had a governor. That's a big statement, but I'm not sure we have ever had a governor who knew the essence of small businesses, the unique struggles of New York communities as much as her. A lot of these governors will rise out of the city or they'll rise out of the DA's office, but she really understands upstate New York, and so she came. We invited her to the conference, and she answered. I think it was the first governor to come to the State Tourism Conference in over 15 years, and she came and spoke, and she didn't even use notes. She just stood at the microphone and riffed and completely understood our challenges, and just recently came out and said New York isn't recovered until New York tourism is recovered, and launched the largest financial investment of any state in the country to help tourism get back on its feet. So we are extremely hopeful for Hochul.
Oh boy! That's why you're strong in branding and marketing, Josiah, because you have you can drop little things in there like that. So very, very clever. So the age-old problem of the state of New York seems to be that New York City, but always does great. Now, of course, we've had the problem with the pandemic and international travel is not allowed. So I don't know if New York City is doing as great as they used to be. But did Governor Hochul address the issue of we really need, selfishly, where I'm sitting, we really need to promote and make sure that the rest of the state, other than New York City, is promoted properly so visitors will come to our different locations outside of New York City?
Yeah, she actually did that in a big way, and that is a nuance that is quite important, like you said. So New York City got a grant. It was back earlier in the summer, I think, or maybe even the spring. It was announced that New York City was going to have an extra $30 million to promote themselves. And everybody thinks of tourism promotion as we're going to put an ad on TV and we're going to get more consumers to book a flight. But it is so much deeper than that, because there are at least seven buckets of tourism promotion. And only one of those buckets is consumer. So if you have a state or a city or a destination doing well, it's usually because the professionals behind the scenes understand the other buckets. And so what does that mean? It means 75% of internationals don't actually book the way we book by getting online and booking. They go to travel agents. Travel agents in the travel industry, in that sense, what they call, the travel business, that is a very, very strong industry overseas. And so in the UK, Germany, Australia, China, most often they will buy trips that are prepackaged. And so what a destination has to do is they actually have to go and build product and build wholesale contracts, bring them over to suppliers at international conferences. Those suppliers put those products into their books and then they sell it. So when all of a sudden a lot of international visitors are showing up to New York City or to Niagara Falls or to Syracuse, it's because of an 18 to 24-month pipeline that they have built for that. And that's the exact same type of pipeline that destination sports are won through, meetings, conferences, conventions, and bus tours. So when New York City says, we have $30 million, that's this huge shot in the arm for them to go start re-engaging in all of the buckets. The way it kind of works in the state is that the I Love New York brand and the I Love New York staff kind of functions as the everything else type of marketing arm. They, of course, market New York City, but because of the strong New York City and company, NYC and Company is the name of the organization that runs the New York City marketing and sales, and most of it is actually sales functions, not marketing. Because that organization is so strong, I Love New York can dedicate more of its time across the state, and so they got an additional $25 million to get back into those international markets and say, even though the restrictions are what they are right now for travel, they're starting to lighten up. But you're getting back into that 18-month pipeline of winning business for 2023 and 2024. And then there was also a large amount of money. This was a very clear indicator that there was an understanding at the state level of our industry. There was $100 million, I believe it was, designated for having conventions and meeting centers be able to offer aggressive pricing. Essentially, the state said, if you can win a conference, we will help you co-op it so it's cheaper. What does that mean? It means if a conference of 2,000 people is looking for a venue in New York, Atlanta, and Chicago, New York can get some co-op funds to make it 30% less or 40% less, so we're absolutely going to win it. So the state adds a little bit of money. We get a 2,000-person convention. They arrive in a New York City, whether that's Albany or Niagara Falls or New York City, and then those 2,000 people bumping around, buying food, buying souvenirs, planning a vacation to come back, become a part of the recovery. So in every phase of this $450 million investment, you basically have all of the categories are massive return on investment categories where they're going to spend a little bit of money to help the industry, and the industry is going to return that money about tenfold.
Well, that's something that I think our leaders in the county and the state need to realize. You got to spend money to make money. Some counties do a little better job than others. I'll leave it at that. I know that you and I communicated last week that you were in a travel show in New England. One of Josiah Brown's jobs is, give me the name of your company again, Josiah.
New York's Best Experiences.
Right.
New York's Best Experiences, and we have that mobile visitor center program.
And as the past tourism director, I can't tell you how helpful Josiah was, because I'll let him tell me how many shows before the pandemic he used to go annually, but he would go out to these shows, consumer shows, and take our travel guide, and were places we couldn't afford to go to every show. Josiah was there. Talk about the latest one you went to in New England, where it was, how the response was, and are people comfortable coming back to travel shows at this point?
Yeah, so pre-pandemic, we were doing about 20 events a year, and by events meaning we would go out to the Boston Travel Show or the Jones Beach Air Show, and we would set up a mobile visitor center where years ago we saw basically the success of, you're on the thruway, you're coming north out of the city, you'd stop at one of the visitor centers there that distributes travel information and answers questions and plays videos. And we would see people standing in those centers, and they were just absolutely awestruck at the images they were seeing, the mountains and the rivers and the lakes, and they're watching the videos, and they were just so blown away. But they were already northbound. They were already heading into the state. So in some ways, it was mission accomplished. And we said, what happens if we can take that mobile visitor center and we can bring it to Boston or Philly or Long Island or Jersey City and create that magical moment to inspire them to come, actually start them on the trail. So we were doing about 20 events pre-pandemic, and of course the pandemic shut down every single thing that we did as far as events and tourism promotion. So we've been getting back to it. We've had kind of a start and stop summer. We started back at the New Jersey Balloon Fest. The New Jersey Balloon Fest set an all-time record for attendance. It was kind of like, pent-up consumerism. It was like you fired the starting gun and everybody wanted to come to something. So the New Jersey Balloon Fest was, record attendance, and then it was kind of up and down from there. We went to the Hudson Valley Wine and Food Fest, and that was off maybe 30%. We went to the Philadelphia Flower Show, which was held outdoors for the first time. That was mobbed. So this last weekend, we actually attended an event called Equine Affair. It's a giant horse expo in Springfield, Massachusetts, and we think, hey, horse people, they have money, they're all from the New England area, but the Boston Travel Show had gotten canceled 6 months ago, and the Springfield Travel Show had gotten canceled 5 months ago. They just didn't want to execute their contracts without knowing what the environment would look like at the time. So we were stuck without a New England event. We said, hey, let's try this equine event. And so we went back, and that is normally, it's an event I've been to before as a consumer. My wife has horses. It was odd, it was really odd. So it was about 60% of the normal vendors, very hard to get into that show as a vendor. This year there was booths everywhere. So it was about 60% of the normal vendors, a lot of open booths, and I would say about 60% of the normal attendees. So you looked at it, the traffic wasn't crazy. Maybe 30,000 people would have normally come to that show over the weekend. I would have said we probably would have seen 18 to 20,000 this year. But the vendors that were there said, almost every vendor I talked with said it was the best show they had ever had, ever. And so this is kind of that, this interesting thing to look at, where you have not as many people, not as many vendors, but the people that are coming are just spending out the nose. So all in all, for us, it was a good opportunity to get back out and have exposure, but it was kind of quirky.
Well, it's interesting. Maybe it's the fact and the people are actually coming out are really engaged and want to, get the information, spend their money, as opposed to people who just have nothing else to do and let's go to a show. But I'm glad to hear that there seems to be some shows happening. I know that, as you well know, I'm a big advocate of golf, and the North Coast golf shows canceled their whole series in Philly, Pittsburgh, New Jersey, Cleveland, Washington, D.C. for 2022 because of COVID concerns. So I think there still is some hesitancy out there for people to, congregate in these shows, which is it's going to take some time, I guess. When do you think we'll actually be back to normal as far as these type of shows attracting the big crowds?
Well, the term I've grown to hate is the new normal, right? these words like pivot and the new normal. But unfortunately, it is how we're having to look. We're having to say, what has changed forever. There's a lot of organizations I sit on the board of that we used to get on our cars and drive to a central location and all sit in front of each other and, have a bad basement chicken meal from a hotel. You know what I'm talking about when you go to a hotel and you get the rubbery chicken lunch during
Sure.
a board meeting. And now I'm on Zoom, right? So I don't think a lot of these board meetings will ever go back to in person, but maybe once a year, twice a year. Events are tricky. How has the consumer replaced this desire to get information? How have they moved on from certain habits of coming to certain shows every year? I don't know. Travel is lucky because we are that one industry where when you come to an event, you're there imagining, you're there dreaming. There's a tire-kicking process of going to different experiences and seeing what they have to offer that really provides something enjoyable. So I think they will come back. I think we will, for 2 years, have, so I'm going to say, until probably the fall of 23, we are going to have this mix in society of I don't care. I'm just going to live again. And I'm going to be cautious in everything I do, even where that kind of doesn't seem to make any logical sense anymore. And that's not an accusation of the people that are doing it. We all kind of know, I knew some people who were young and extremely healthy, who would not go to a grocery store for a year. And it was just a level of fear that was just, unbelievable for them. They were terrified. And for whatever reason that is, I'm not accusatory of, why that is, but I think right now, the events I've been to, there was much stronger in the summer, but as we plowed into the fall, I think we're looking at about a 60-40 split. There's 60% saying, I'm vaccinated, I'm just going to live again, what do you got? Go back out to an event. And I think you've got 40% that are looking at rules, they're looking at crowd size, they're looking at other ways to obtain that information. And I think we're going to click 2 to 3 to 4% down every couple of months as we march forward. And that has to be the 2022 strategy, is what can you execute on 60, 65, 70% of your normal?
Let me ask you this. I always was fascinated to hear your perception of what people, how people handled the pandemic and in the tourism and hospitality industry. With what have the large attractions and the smaller attractions and some of our accommodations, how good of a job have they done to prepare visitors to come to there, whether it's an attraction or whether it's a hotel, during this pandemic? And what are they doing differently now than maybe they did a year ago?
Well, it's a mixed bag, of course. The hospitality industry I'm so proud to work in it because these destinations stepped up as hosts, right? They stepped up as hospitality. They found ways to make people comfortable. I was out in Western New York at all the way out in Wyoming County, which a lot of people would know as the Letchworth, the edge of the Finger Lakes, the Letchworth State Park area. We're out in Western New York at that point. And went to a place called River Spring Lodge. It's just this little 7-room lodge out in kind of the country, and that's exactly why people visit it. You're going to think Buffalo, Rochester, Toronto. This is like a little escape. What they have is 7 rooms, and they have really high-end food. The owner is a chef. So during the pandemic, what they did is they started offering a 5-course dinner paired with wine in your room. So you sit at a table in your room. So you go there for a romantic getaway, and you sit at a table in your room and get a 5-course meal. Now that just complicates the staff's life like I can't even believe. But for the consumer, they're out of their mind. I mean, this resort has 5-star reviews rolling in again and again and again and again. And so the location didn't look at how hard it would be on them. They looked at how do we provide something to the public to let them breathe again, to let them reconnect. The pandemic filled a lot of people with fear and anxiety and loss, and people have experienced loss and life changes, and they need the hospitality industry desperately. So here's a property that's serving a 5-course dinner in your room, and people are kind of reporting back, hey, I don't think that should ever go away. You go from that all the way to New York's largest water park in Old Forge, which is called the Enchanted Forest Water Safari. They spent $1 million on new lines, ride lines, hand sanitizers, staff to keep people separated. So the industry has stepped up for the benefit of the public, but this is fortunately a thing that we will mostly be able to get past infrastructure-wise. It's a respiratory disease, right? So once it is really not a problem anymore, we can go back to being close in line again. So it's not like some of these things have to be permanent. But I think some things will survive. You know, that 5-course dinner in your room thing. It's been amazing to see how much the industry has worked to care for people.
Yeah, I'd like to experience that sometime. I have Josiah Brown here. We have a few more minutes. Josiah, let me ask you real quick, because I know you were involved in promoting it early on. How did Legoland in Orange County do in its first year?
You know, they were restricted by numbers, and the demand, really challenging situation for them because they sold so many season passes. And so for many of the first initial months, almost all of their daily capacity went to season passes. But they were at capacity virtually every day, which I believe, you know, they don't share specific numbers, but I believe it was about, you know, between a third and a half of their regular capacity. So they end up at capacity every day. And their hotel, you know, there's only 300 rooms up there for 10,000 people who want to use it every day. So their hotel, from what I understand, was quite full as well. But, you know, very, very hard financial hit. I think they're very fortunate that they're owned by the second largest entertainment company in the world, which is Merlin. You know, here's a resort that went over budget to open because of the unbelievable breaks in the supply chain. They couldn't get so many things for so long, and, you know, you're just doing your best to get it. So they went a year longer with staff before they opened. They had supply chain issues. They finally get open. They're only able to be open at a third capacity. Really challenging. They're going to be fine. You know, they're owned by a massive hospitality company, but we really want to see them be able to next year get up to full capacity. And when they open in the spring, you know, we'll be dealing with warmer weather. I think that we will be much past this by the time we open in the spring. God help us.
Well, let's hope so. Well, it's always great to talk with you, Josiah. The half hour flies by. Love having you on. We'll definitely have you on in the new year. Thanks for all the great information, as always, and be safe on your nationwide or New York State travels. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Rick. I'm on, we've started a digital show on Facebook, New York's Best Experiences on Facebook. You can watch me as I travel across the state and experience things on the New York Sherpa Show. So look that up, and appreciate the time. Always good to talk to you. I'm trying to make that Radio Rick thing stick.
Okay, thanks, Josiah. All right, Lawrence, a really good show.
Radio Rick. I like that.
We might have to change that.
Yeah, we might have to put it on the website, Radio Rick Remsnyder.
So I know you need to get over there and get to your blood work, and so you can get something.
I did. I'm so hungry that I'm going to just drive right there. I told them I'm walking in at 9:05. They just called, and I said I'm coming now. So have a good weekend. We'll be back Monday with Medical Monday.